a really good event for us will make over 2,500. I have a business partner. She's not on the call, and we're equal owners. Really good friend, Jessica, and she's in the fashion industry. So how does someone in the fashion industry and a professor are on track to make 200K would be more like it. And I think we officially signed up with Link in October, really started training in November. So yeah, we're almost a month away from starting this a year ago. So I teach communication courses, primarily public speaking and interpersonal communication. So I'm all about helping people kind of communicate who they are more effectively and then connect with other people more meaningfully. Well, first I'll say, just basic communication, right? Sending and receiving messages, reaching out to people to find out, what's the best product, finding the best prices, and then ultimately talking to people about, what are their best sellers for chains and what should we end up, carrying. That's just on the behind the scenes part. But really in person with people, what we found in this permanent jewelry community, even though it's getting popular, there's still a ton of people who have no idea what permanent jewelry is. To be able to say what it is, how it could work for them. I'm sure everyone has had that customer, or you will have that customer who's like, permanent jewelry? Is it permanently in your skin? And so to be able to explain to them what it is and what it isn't, we tend to say that it's simply just claspless, customizable jewelry. And I think being able to understand how you want to present your product and your service to the customer, and then being able to explain that. I think a strong point for my partner, Jessica, and I, is that we understand that not everybody might be as excited about it in the moment, but making sure to plant those seeds for them to let them know, hey, if this is something you ever want to do, we're your girls. And so I think when it comes to the communication background, understanding how to talk to people, but also how to pick up on their nonverbal cues and when to give a little bit more or when to pull back. So those things have definitely been helpful. And then also just keeping those client relationships. And if somebody's has an issue with a chain, jewelry is still jewelry. Permanent doesn't make it invincible. To let them know that we're there for them if something does go down, I think is huge. So that way that they can trust that you have their back. And that's worked for us so far. No, not at all. Well, in terms of competition, are there a lot of people doing it? Yes. However, I do believe that just like there's a ton of nail salons and coffee shops out there, there's plenty of sunshine to go around.
Yep,
and
exactly.
So there's room for a bunch of businesses. There's so many different areas you could go to. I'll say that in the beginning, it was exciting being kind of one of the few in our area, but it's blown up since then. But we've kind of created those relationships, and we've found out, because we've made friends in the permanent jewelry community. Like, the last thing you want is to make enemies.
Right.
Let's say we are out of town and somebody needs a fix. We can reach out to one of our fellow permanent jewelry friends and say, hey, would you mind fixing this? And, they still get their business and we get ours. And I think that mentality is huge. And we can talk more about that after. And one of the things I've learned in this community, one of the things I'm sad about, but one of the things I hope to promote more is building that community within the community and not seeing people as your competition, but rather someone else who has a great idea. And how could you set yourself apart, but still show love to your fellow competitors, We've already experienced that too. We've really been lucky with I shouldn't say lucky, because we put a lot of work into this. Opportunities don't just find you. You have to put yourself out there. But we've gotten a lot of opportunities because we have put ourselves out there. And that is because we've had events that didn't bring in a lot of money, but we still continued to not let that discourage us. And so in pushing through and finding more events, there's sometimes where there's so many that we can't do them. And so we've connected with other permanent jewelry artists who, there's two of us in our business, but maybe they just have one. And so it's like, hey, do you want to help us work this big event and make some money as well? And so I agree. I love that phrase, collaboration over, is a competition?
Yep.
Yeah, I dig that. And I couldn't agree more. We've experienced that too. It's funny because our first event ever, we went in, it was like a 5-hour event. We made $500 and we were so excited because it was our first event. We're like, oh my gosh. And then now a really good event for us will make over 2,500. And we won't even, I know that sounds crazy, but we value our time. And so when it comes to the events that we find, we're aiming like higher. And so when we first started, the stakes were lower and
Yeah.
we didn't have a huge chain selection. We were still figuring ourselves out, but it was amazing for where we were at. But so when we first started, we're bringing in maybe a couple thousand a month. And I think one of our last months, we brought in 15,000 over one weekend. Granted, it was a huge festival, but to see where we started to where we are now, it's insane. And so I think what's went into that is finding out the events that work for us. I will say, as I keep, mentioning, there's two of us, right? Jessica and myself, who own the business. We're 50-50. So the fact that we are two helps us out because we divide and conquer.
Yeah.
So there were times where we would work two events together, but now we split up for most of them unless it's a massive event. So that event that I told you we grossed 15,000 in a weekend, we went to that one together. So we were able to double our sales. And so making decisions like that, and we're at the point now where we're ready to scale. So we're training a couple people to help us so that way we can split up for events. If we need a helper, we can. And it's been hard to, trust others, which I will say we probably could have scaled sooner, but it was tough to bring others on. But I realize that the loss is bigger if you don't choose to expand, right? Because then we'll never reach over this hump. Instead of saying, you know what, we're going to grow. There's going to be people that maybe screw us over, but it's the only way that we're going to learn and potentially grow. So I don't know if I answered your question, but we've consistently beat our sales, each month. And then we're finally at a point now where we used to say yes to every single event. And now we're actually taking a step back and saying, will this work for us? This in line with who we want to be. I know that are we exhausted and overworked? Yes, but we're both willing to do that. It's not, the money is there if you put yourself out there, but it's something that you need to constantly make sure you're checking yourself with. How big do I want to grow? Then that's going to be the amount of effort that you need to put in. And I will say this, getting discouraged if you don't get something, or if you have an event that's slow, we've had a few of those. And then we've also had events where we've made 15,000 in a weekend. So being discouraged is going to go against you instead of I'm going to keep going and keep finding out, where to be. And that's what we've done. And I think that's what's led to our success. I will say this, and I can attribute this to Linked, because when we did the training, it was really important that, there was a typical, I think, formula in terms of pricing our product that you shared. And, here's the basic, the what's it called? Like the lowest price. However, make sure to value yourself too. And it really isn't just about the actual product and the price. It's about your service and it's about your time. And that was something that my business partner, Jessica, was really good at. I was the one who almost was like, will people pay for this? I'm not sure. And with her business background, she was just like, this is a service. This is what we're doing. And we're putting our time in. And then sure enough, that first event where somebody does buy your piece at that price, and don't get me wrong, were they inflated? No, they were still like fair for our area, but also making sure we valued ourselves and seeing, oh, wait a second, this does work, and going from there. So we've never gone against that. And what's crazy too, is we never thought that we'd have a product over $125. And we just dropped, like, our most expensive solid gold right now is a $275 piece, which is crazy because we never thought we'd go over 125. Yeah. Right. And slowly but surely through training, we got a lot of insight at PJX, which was amazing. And at PJX, we actually were already doing fairly well. We weren't like brand new in the game, but we took so much away from it. And one of them was realizing that if you have a product or two that are kind of that luxe line, it might not be something that appeals to everybody, but there will be those people who will purchase it. Mm-hmm. And that has been the case. I mean, did I ever think that we were going to carry diamond connectors and that people were going to pay for them? Like, it's crazy to me. And we make sure to back that up. We're not just, oh, here we have good products, because that's not enough. We need to make sure that we have that customer service, that people feel like they can trust us. Mm-hmm. And that's how we go through reputable people, which we've been able to find through some of the permanent jewelry communities, which is nice. But I appreciate Linked starting us with that mindset, giving us that formula. And that was one of the many things that we gained from Linked, but just going back to our expectations on what we thought people would pay for our product and what they're paying now. You need to value yourself. I mean, that's one of the things I teach in my classrooms, and the same thing that I live by now. And, Jessica, my business partner, is just so great at that and realizing, one, the market, but two, here's what we're worth and here's what we're offering. So one, you need to believe that you are offering a service and that you are valuable and you have something worth paying for. Because if you don't believe that, well, then you're screwed out the gate. So that's step one. And then the second thing is, finding those good products that stand behind, versus, and we've experienced it in this industry, it's booming so much now that you're going to find people who claim something is something and it's not. So it's realizing that you're doing the work to find the good pieces that warrant that price tag. So if deep down, I'm being, honest about what I do, I'm putting my time and effort into this, people will pay for that. But if you don't believe it and you're questioning yourself, your product's going to reflect that. And I'll tell you, I'll share an interesting situation that we had. So there are more permanent jewelry people coming up in our area, which is, a given. Mm-hmm. But we did an event, and it's normal that for big events, there's going to be a couple different vendors there, permanent jewelry vendors. Well, we did an event where they booked 3 of us, which in our opinion is a lot, but we went with it and we, kind of stood behind what we were and what we had to offer. Well, there was somebody there who I think had some really low prices, and we had a few similar pieces, but not all of them. And this gal really liked one of our pieces. Well, she was kind of going back and forth between us and somebody else. And she said, they have a similar piece, but theirs is so much cheaper. Would you be willing to go down? And one of the things that Jessica and I are hard set on is there's no bargaining with our pieces. This is not a swap meet, right? We're not here in, downtown. This is what we stand for. This is our work. And you're not just paying for that piece, which is something we adopted very early on, is mm-hmm. This is our work and our service. And so we said, really sorry, but we do stand behind our pieces, and what we say they are, they are. And this comes with a guarantee that if something happens, in a period of time, they can come back. So she didn't end up buying our product. She ended up buying the other product. Well, we get a message on Instagram 2 weeks later that her piece had tarnished. And she said, I wish that I would have went with you. Where's your next pop-up, and can I get a piece? And so I'm not sure, and no shame on anyone else, but, we believe fairly. And, as she found out that the piece that she wanted to get, and we found out, I think it was from you guys, Linked. It was the way to test out if something was gold plated or gold filled with the magnet. Mm-hmm. We love showing people that. And so we're like, hey, you don't have to buy a piece from us, but I want you to take this. And if somebody's claiming that theirs is half the price of ours, I just want you to consider we are confident in what we do. And if somebody doesn't want to pay that, we have 10 other people who will. And we're okay with those who are saying, no to us. So I wanted to share that, experience, because it speaks to how we feel about what we sell. And in the beginning, it takes time, but now we know that we find quality products, and we'll also stand by the fact if something isn't quality, we let them know, just like any store. Oh, hey, I bought this shirt and I found a rip in it. It's like, I bought this chain and it broke in 2 days. We'll bring it back. We'll put a new one on you. That's what our policy says. And because we stand by that, people know that they can trust us and that we have integrity in what we do. But when you're service-based, that's where the value comes in. It really isn't about the chain. It's you're sitting there, you're taking your time. And while we don't necessarily ask anyone to tip us, it's interesting that in this business, sometimes people do because they see it as that, but it really does come down to that, that mentality. I've realized that in a lot of the groups, there's some arguments about, do I need training? Do I not need training? So one thing about Jessica and I is that not only are we self-starters, we're motivated, but we're researchers. And so if I were to say, oh, hey, could we have figured this out on our own and watched thousands of hours on YouTube? I mean, sure, you might be able to say something like that. But what we were able to gain from Linked really gave us a foundation. Now, will I say that a training is going to give you, every single thing that you need in your life for success? That's like saying getting a college degree is going to set you up with a $2 million job without anything extra. It's like, no, the one element is you and what you're able to put forward. Somebody, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so I think that Linked gave us all of the tools to really give us that foundation from understanding how the machine worked. And by the way, we started with the basic machine. I remember a phone call with you when we were on the edge of deciding, are we going to get it or not? And you said, what's stopping you? And I was like, we just don't know. We want to get this machine, but do we pay extra, but we don't have this money to start. And you said, you said to me, you said, listen, you can easily start this business with this, off-brand machine. You can do your first couple events and you can gain your investment back. And then when you do, you can upgrade. And you were 100% right. We did our first few events. We made our investment back. And then we upgraded to the Orion. And now we have 2 Orions and are about to buy a 3rd one. And ever since then, it's been like a game changer. But I will say that we watched a ton of videos and we practiced, and I think there's this mentality out there. Okay, I watched the videos and why am I not just successful tomorrow? It took time and we practiced nonstop, and we are crazy researchers. We were on the forums, we were in the group chat. And so it wasn't something that like, oh, we just woke up and we were successful. Like we just nonstop were looking for answers. And I feel like a big part of that though was going with a really reputable company like Linked to kind of give us those tools. And everyone's going to have their own view on things, but just understanding that I don't know if I think it's a really big part of the formula, starting with a solid training company, but we have to realize that, okay, what are we going to do with that information now? And that's where we come in. So we have to take that responsibility. We did have the drive, we did have the ambition. Was I spending all of my hours? I mean, every night before I went to sleep, I would scroll like an hour on the Linked page, and I joined a couple other ones too, because again, it's like, I believe that when you take advantage of all of the resources out there, you're upping your chances of success. So I looked and I asked, and we found those things out. My business partner did the same. We pooled this information, found what worked for us, from as little as, okay, how do we troubleshoot these welds? And you guys were always so great. We'll hop on a call with you, and whatnot. There's so many different elements, I'll say too, that from where we started to where we are now, stressing out when your weld's like blue and what to do. And now it's like, oh, you just go through these and troubleshooting things. And to know that worst case scenario, obviously, if it ends up coming down to the machine and having to switch it, but it rarely is that. I just, keeping your cool and feeling confident about what you did. And I feel like starting with Linked to kind of give us that background was one, but 2, just nonstop practice, nonstop research. But that's because we are both committed to the growth. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. How committed are you to your growth? And you're going to have to input that in, to receive that back. And I feel like what we started to do is we were taking a lot of information online, but then we needed to get out there and start applying it. And there was going to be times where, I don't know, I think one of our first big events, we blew so many welds. Luckily, it was like my sister's salon, and a lot of the people like knew us, but they were really like patient. But it was all about how we handled it. Because I'll tell you this, especially from the communication aspect, and what I've realized in the permanent jewelry world, most people don't know what like it's supposed to look like on the other side, right? They don't know that we're sweating and that we're freaking out if we're not giving them that look. So they don't know how long a weld normally takes, or, oh, if it doesn't blow, if you remain you're cool, calm, and collected and trying to figure it out, then before you know it, they're not even phased. And I think sometimes we, without knowing it, are almost like projecting our stress and anxiety on others. And then they're like, oh, wait, you're not, it's like, it's an airplane. Remain calm unless the flight attendants are not, right? And so again, taking responsibility for how you want to be perceived in your business, and understanding that most people, like you're the ambassador, you're the professional. The more that you learn, the more that you take on is going to help you be more confident in what you do and confident in communicating that. Back to that moment where we were blowing all the welds, I remember, because we were 2 of us, I paused for a minute and I looked at Jessica. I said, hey, Jessica, do you want to take over for a minute? It might be my technique, but and she had no idea, the person who was sitting there, but I had my business partner take over because I wasn't sure, was I too stressed? But being able to then say, I'm going to take a minute, shut off the machine and do all these things. But honestly, it just goes back to asking yourself how committed you are to this working and what you want to put into it to get there. That's not going to come from necessarily like a training. It's more just understanding that you also represent your brand. And I want to stress that I think it's a no-brainer to take a course to help you understand, to want to work a machine. I mean, you guys did way more than that. I mean, even just the breakdown of how to price things, and you gave us the option to get chains from you, or just what to look for. All of these things are just one part of it, but also understanding, I think one of the biggest things is, how to troubleshoot. We still don't use argon, and I'll never forget Sarah saying, you can still be successful and still do solid welds without argon. And there's just so many communities dedicated to using it, and more power to them. I think that's great. I went to PJX, and the weld that I created at PJX with the argon machine looks the same as the welds that we create. And so, but I think that it's important to stress that your technique, and there's so many things involved, but I love that about you guys. But you gave both the options, as opposed to, if you don't take this route, you're screwed. We're going to give you both options. You choose what you want to do, but it's still possible this way. And here we are, almost at 200K, still operating that way. It's a given with any business, and any business that's growing, there's going to be polarizing sides. And it's just about finding the people who speak your language, and if the place you feel most supported. And I think just chugging along with that. Same with us too. There's a lot of great permanent jewelry companies in our area. We've made friends with a few of them. And what's really cool, it's just like I said, it's finding your nail technician or the person who does your hair, who does it your way, and realizing that they're all going to be successful in their own way. But someone who comes to us or doesn't come to us might find success with someone else. And what we're going to do is, one, not have the expectation that we're going to like dominate this entire area, because that's impossible. Nor do we want to, right? It's like we can still be successful, and someone else down the street can be successful too. And then the second thing is just not take it personal if someone doesn't choose us, because we want to find those people who our product and our service does speak to. We're finally at the place where we do have like recurring clients who bring people back to us and who have said, because now it's everywhere in our area, oh, I was at a festival the other day and there was another permanent jewelry vendor there, but we were just waiting to come see Parker J. And it was such a cool feeling, because we wouldn't take it personal, go and, add stacks and, come back to us. But it was really cool that they were loyal. And I feel like that's how you're successful, not financially, but on the other end, where people are coming to see you. And it's just cool to be able to create those relationships with people. I'll say that we knew that it's hard, because I feel like, so permanent jewelry as a concept, brilliant. And it's a successful idea, right? In terms of what the work that you put into it, and it wouldn't change anything, but realizing how much work it takes to become successful at our level, right? And so the truth is that we were happy with how we were doing in the beginning. It was exciting to start something new. But once you see and you have that first huge event, your sales like skyrocket, then you're like, oh my gosh, I want more of these, right? And so I think realizing, I don't think we knew that it would continue to grow this fast, and like how much it would keep, like when I say taking from us, like how much we kept like going. I mean, my friends and family, Jessica's friends and family, like our weekends are like booked out, but we wouldn't want any other way, because like we're building this company. And for us to be at this place now where we're able to scale, I think if anything, realizing that you do require trust. And I think that we wish that we would have scaled sooner, but it is hard to open up your business to others. And I think just realizing that there's always going to be a risk, but it's worth taking that risk. And I mean, that might be it. Oh, and the other thing is realizing that don't get too comfortable with your chains and your product, because supply issues or, whatnot, be open to always like expanding and realizing that, oh, I got to try something else or another supplier. Because I will say this, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. We didn't realize how excited people were when we ran out of a chain that we couldn't find, and then we added a new chain, and that became our next popular chain. Right. And so I feel like at the end of the day, I wish we would have gotten out of our own way sooner, trusted the process, but understanding that you can get to a point where you kind of like sell yourself, but realizing if you expect that too soon, I think you're going to, crash too soon. It's going to take time, but it's going to be what you're willing to risk and put on the line if you want to grow to that level. And we've definitely been doing that, it's just kind of exciting to see where this goes. We've already blown our own expectations out of the water. I'm just happy that, Jessica and I found you. Actually, I should give the credit to Jessica, because she found Linked. And I really am grateful for the community, the transparency, and the openness to kind of help us, continue to grow, and actually checking on us to see, where we're at. Just excited to see where Parker J is going to go from here.